Hi, my name is Rachel and welcome back to Auxhart Gardening.
Also, welcome to my porch. This is the first garden tour that we are shooting since I have moved into the new house, the one that is actually attached to my garden. And this is, I think, our week 16 video. So here is the old house, the green one, and I am now in my new house next to the garden. Yesterday morning I sat out here with my coffee and it was raining and it was just so peaceful and so nice. It's so nice to be able to see the garden out of my windows. It's been so good, but there's a lot of work to do. There's so much stuff to be moved. When I finally do get stuff moved, probably at the end of next week's garden tour, I will give you guys a peek inside, but for this week it's far too messy for that. So here at the place where we normally start, I have a few potted plants. These are the ones that moved over from the other house. They are going to live here until they die, and then these pots are going to be washed and maybe reused, maybe put into storage, because I don't necessarily need them. And right now it's actually a good thing that it's raining so much, because every single one of these plants, the roots don't grow out of the sides of these cloth pots because they touch the air that is allowed to come through and they know not to go that way. But when they are on the ground like this, there's none of that air barrier, and the roots can actually force themselves through this right into the ground. So where they were doing pretty great and not needing to be watered because they had their roots down pretty deep. But I just had to rip all of that up to move them over, and so they would need watering, except it has been very rainy, so that's kind of convenient for me. I haven't had a lot of time to be picking stuff. You can see this jalapeno got way too ripe, but I have to make the decision. There's some priorities. There's garden priorities, and there are house priorities, and there are work priorities, and some things are getting overlooked, and hopefully I'll be able to catch up on all of that soon. But right now it's kind of a what is absolutely necessary and do all of those things first kind of season. For example, because I have so many green beans to eat, I've been letting the pole beans here go to seed. I actually got beans out of a pod that I had missed a while back, and they're pretty good sized. So I'm thinking that these will make really good dried beans, and hopefully this time I can actually pick them in time for them to be really good for that. But this plant is also still putting on cute little babies, and so if I wanted to, I can still come out here at any time and find enough for dinner that are the right size to be eaten. And we are going to have to step over the eggplant to get to the tomatoes. Oh, well, look at that. Mushroom friends in the garden. If you haven't heard me say it already, mushrooms are a wonderful sign in your garden. They are not to be pulled out, and they are probably not going to cause any problems. So the tomatoes, they're still producing. I still have to come out here and pull them. You can see I'm a little behind. Normally I pull them right when they start blushing, but it's been super rainy, like I said, and also I just have been trying to prioritize different things. And so some of the tomatoes are getting away from me, as well as the eggplants. The eggplants are coming into their next flush. So you can see some of them are starting to get about pickable size. These ones that do the stripy eggplants, these are Antigua. These actually had a bit of a larger gap between flushes than the Nagasaki longs did, but I'm definitely going to be harvesting a few of these off of the plants before the freeze comes, which is still probably about a month away. You never really know, but that's the estimation at this point. Oh, look at that big one over there. That's a big boy. So I'm having to find new paths in the garden as time goes on, because things like this nasturtium. This is getting huge. This is one nasturtium plant. You can see my foot next to it. It is in its prime, taking over. all of my walking space. And then there's these peppers. Oh, these ones are laying over. That's a little new. Still looking okay though. These are my banana pino peppers, which are a cross between banana peppers and jalapenos from the Experimental Farm Network. And I haven't tried them in relation to other peppers yet, so I don't know how spicy they are. And a couple of the pepper plants are kind of giving up. You can see this one is not doing so hot, but this guy next to him, my adorable Jigsaw Pepper, this is all one plant too, by the way. Looking really gorgeous. I can see why people grow this as an ornamental. Oh my goodness. I have one of these inside that I kind of bonsai'd by keeping it in a tiny little pot, but this one is huge. From this angle, the garden still looks pretty lush if you ignore these really dead sunflower stalks. And when I was moving these pots, I realized just how big the Malabar spinach got. It is taking over 2 pots now. This is where it grows out of, and this is where it wants to live. Some of the berries are getting ready, and I will dye my fingers purple to show you. They make this beautiful color. And the leaves are edible, the berries are not, but they could probably dye things if you wanted them to. I also hadn't checked on my ginger in a while, and it looks okay. It's not as healthy looking as my ginger last year, but definitely still got some good rhizomes under there, most likely. The pepper patch is all laying over, and the only thing still standing is this giant Tabasco plant. That is one plant over there. It is so pretty. Look at that. These are also often grown as ornamental plants. The entire tomato patch is still, well, it's still a mess. There are not a lot of good tomatoes to be had out of it unless you pick them green, and that is kind of low on the priority list right now. So I'm finding some that have gone red and have rotted, and it's a little sad, but it's not the end of the world, to be honest. And still, every week that these continue to bloom, I am amazed. I guess they'll keep blooming until frost at this point. You can even see new ones coming up right here. And as long as we're talking about new flowers, this green bean trellis is about to be full of them, which means I'm about to have a whole fresh green bean producing area in my garden. And that is gonna be wild. Yesterday I just pulled even more noodle beans off of this trellis. I'll have to insert here a picture of the jar of dried beans that I have from this so far. It's actually quite a lot. And the last video I think that I released is how to save the dried beans from noodle beans, but it is the same process for green beans. So if you have regular green beans, any kind of bean, and you want to save the seeds and or dried beans out of it, go check out that video. But just the amount that this plant keeps producing, I have said this like every week now, but like I am still surprised by it. You know, I started seeing the leaves look a little sick like this, and I thought, oh, for sure this is dying out. And then I continue to find more and more beans, even flowers in some cases for new beans coming on. And so I'm just pretty convinced that this will keep producing until something kills it, like a frost. Oh, and down here, if you look, you see these coming out of the ground. These are new plants that are coming up because dried beans dropped and sprouted, and I didn't notice in the chaos of everything. So that's kind of fun. Now over here you'll notice the massive amount of cardboard followed by a large pile of mulch. Mulch eventually needs to get moved onto the cardboard so that I can move all my path stones back on here. I went through and pulled all of this grass that had grown up when I had the squash here, and I wasn't able to mow or pull weeds that effectively. And so now I'm putting down cardboard as sort of a weed barrier in addition to a fresh layer of mulch to hopefully keep down the weeds in this area for at least the next year. Well, that's the hope anyway. And I just got the new raised bed planted. In here I've put my lavender. I grew this from seed, neglected it all summer, and now I'm putting it in here in the hopes that it'll perk up and grow up big for me. I got some oregano at the store because it's a little late to start anything like that from seed. Same with the sage. This is the same place where I got the sage plant that I had at my old place, the one that was unkillable. So I'm hoping that this one does just as well. I had my parsley, which I thought was dead, start coming back from the roots. So I went ahead and put that in here. I got myself a fresh thyme plant, and I potted or planted one of my stevia plants from a pot into here. Now that I know that this will come back from its roots when spring comes, I'm pretty confident having it as part of my perennial herb bed. And there's no more to show you over at the old house. The spot where all those plants were is entirely empty. And, oh, coming soon, this corner of the property here-ish is where I'm planning on putting in my berry bushes, which came in the mail. And with everything else that I'm doing, those are not the highest on the priority list, but maybe they'll get done this week. If I have some help that manages to come over, and if we manage to get this whole path situation figured out, then maybe I will be able to get those berry bushes in, and that would be really, really cool. I'm very excited to have berry bushes because I love blueberries. I have right now blueberry bushes and a few thornless blackberries, and I think I ordered from somewhere else some thornless raspberries. And I'm not going to grow anything that has thorns, so hopefully these varieties are good. But I'm pretty excited for it. I don't know that much about growing berry bushes, so if you have recommendations, I'm very open to that. Mostly just going to try and follow the instructions from the company that sold them to me and see how that goes. My neighbor Alana, who is 9, came over in the middle of me filming and helped me pick all of this produce. I can't show her on camera, but she has been a good help, and it's really fun to talk to her about stuff in the garden because I'm used to talking to adults who have all of these assumptions about things, and she has none of that. And so it's very fun to teach her about stuff, and I think it will help me teach you guys better, because there are probably some things that I assume that you know that you have no business knowing, and I have no business assuming that you know, and talking to her probably is really good for helping me figure out what those things that I'm assuming that you know are. Anyways guys, it's a short tour today, mostly because everything's more condensed, but also because I have a lot of work to do. But lots of cool things coming. Fall planting also maybe this week. It is up there on the list of things to do. Until next time, I wish you guys all happy gardening. I'm looking out from my porch, and these 2 cats are just sitting here watching me.